Hello BookTube, welcome back to my channel. My name is David, and right now we have an update on The Lord of the Rings. So it is part of a read-along that Steve Donahue, myself, and Tony from An Erudite Adventure have ventured out upon. Now, Tony in January read Fellowship of the Ring, and Steve and myself decided, you know what? Let's just jump straight to the Two Towers. Steve and I have both read Fellowship of the Ring multiple times prior to this. In fact, I read all three of these last year again. And it's been quite the fun adventure. It brings a different sort of perspective when you jump straight into the Two Towers without doing the Fellowship of the Ring first. It's not something that I would do regularly, but it has been really, really fascinating to skip over a lot of the ground setting that is done in Fellowship of the Ring, and to get what was expected to be into the middle of the action. And as we found with the first 5 chapters, it was a lot of, okay, here's this thing. We're going to go and meet some people. We're going to talk. And then off we go to the next thing. And with any other writer, that might be a formula for really, really poor plotting, pacing, writing. But with Tolkien, it really, really works. And it works really well. And so for the second week of February, we were going to be reading chapters 6 through 11 in book 3, which is the second half of the following Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Merry, Pippin, Gandalf, as they go on their piece of the adventure with the split of the Fellowship. And in here we have the chapter that we all expect, which is going to encounter the battle at Helm's Deep. But before we get there, chapter 6 is talking, and away we go, which still works extremely well. The chapter that everybody is probably going to look forward to in the Two Towers, the one that they remember most of all, is most likely the Battle of Helm's Deep. And I think part of that is inspired in a big way because of the films. And there are a lot of ways in which the film battle deviates from the book battle. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a different medium. It's written for a different kind of audience. And so the storytelling devices that Peter Jackson utilized to tell that story in the movie is almost guaranteed going to have to be different than what they used in the books. Not only because, cinematic elements and all of that, but because he changed the character of Aragorn fairly heavily. That is the one character that really changes between the book and the movie. And both of them are great. I prefer the book version, but you could make a case for preferring the movie version. And you would think that this would be the centerpiece of this portion of the book, that it would be the star of the show. And it is beyond a question where the most action happens in these 6 chapters. In the first 11 chapters, the entirety of book 3, it is by a wide margin where the most action happens. Because the other major event that you're expecting to see is the rending down of Isengard by the Ents, which happens in the following chapter. But we don't get to see those things happening. It's not taking place. It's instead the Fellowship comes across Merry and Pippin sitting at the gates of Isengard, enjoying the spoils of a successful campaign. And they're just recounting what happened in the tearing down of Isengard. And that was a decision that Tolkien could have made differently, and that if a modern author today was writing this, if Lord of the Rings didn't exist, it was being written today, it would be a grandiose epic that would probably span 100 pages just for that part. Helm's Deep probably would have been 100 pages just for that battle itself. It would have been cinematic and wide-spanning and carried a significant chunk, because the Two Towers probably would have been an 800-page book all on its own. Let's face it. There's a bloat that goes into more modern fantasy that wasn't present at Tolkien's time. And it works really, really well both ways. There's things to enjoy both ways about it. And I actually find I really enjoy Tolkien's minimalist approach on a lot of this. Instead of focusing heavily on the action and on what's going on, it's more of major beats along the way, the ebbs and flows of what's taking place, and the emotions, the reactions, the interactions that are taking place among them. And instead in particular, when we get to Merry and Pippin recounting what happened in Isengard, we get the refreshing nature of friends that have been separated are getting back together and having a chance to chat and banter, and you get to see all that on the page, and it's wonderfully done. It's something that doesn't happen as often in more modern books, because it's always about that pacing to the next big action beat, rather than taking the time to really develop that character bond, that relation that these characters have with each other. And so both of those chapters are significant and magnificent. Really, really a delight. And then the bulk of what is left regards what to do with the wizard still captured in Orthanc. How to deal with Sauron and the discussion with Sauron. And what happens as a result there with Grima Wormtongue tossing out the Palantir. And the eventual uncovering of what the Palantir is and what it does. And the fortunate stroke that Sauron, in interacting with the Hobbit, who mischievously sneaks that Palantir stone away from a sleeping Gandalf and replaces it with a stone. What you saw in the movie did happen in the book, and there are so many beats along the way in the movies where they do correspond really closely with what happens in the book, and it's wonderful. What takes place there is a stroke of good fortune, as Gandalf points out, because nothing was conclusively revealed to Sauron in his haste to get his hands on the hobbits. He sends off his winged messenger to go and retrieve them from Orthanc, because he assumes that Sauron has captured the hobbit and is making him look into the stone as a form of torture. Because that was what had been set out. The orcs at the very beginning of this book that had captured Merry and Pippin had orders to bring them back and to turn them over unspoiled, undamaged. And so Sauron's expecting that this has been fulfilled. Sauron has achieved this objective. I will go send somebody to retrieve him. And it's going to take time for that messenger to get there. And in that time, before Sauron finds his mistake, finds that Sauron has fully betrayed him and has fallen to ruins, they have that window in which to cover a lot of ground. Thankfully, Gandalf has Shadowfax, the fastest of all the horses that have ever been in existence during this period of time. That he has a lineage and the blood of his sires that were magnificent horses, kings of horses. And he's able to cover more ground than any horse ever could, and go much, much longer without needing to rest than any other horse could. And so at the end of this, we see another separation. We have Gandalf and one hobbit racing off to Minas Tirith, and the rest of them riding to Rohan with King Theoden. And we aren't going to return to them until we get to Return of the King. And you know what's in store for them. If you've seen the movies, you know what is coming in Return of the King. And we will... I know Tony probably is going to read Return of the King still in March. I assume Steve Donahue, we haven't actually formally talked about this, but I assume Steve is going to continue on into March. And I will do the same as well. I plan to read it because last year I read Fellowship of the Ring, and then I listened to the Andy Serkis narrations of Two Towers and Return of the King. They were long audiobook waits, but they were just a genuine delight. He is a phenomenal voice actor. And if you've never listened to the audiobooks of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I can strongly recommend the Andy Serkis rendition of them. But I'm actually reading them this time. Going back and forth between reading this nice, wonderful copy with illustrations from Tolkien, as well as I've got them on my Barnes & Noble, my Nook app. I had purchased them long ago when I had Nook, and so I have that on my phone. So I'm depending on where I'm at physically, determines whether I'm reading it in this big book or I'm reading it on my phone. And I'm just enjoying it. It moves along so quickly for me. I think part of that is because we left the Shire. Part of that is because I've read this many, many times. It's Tolkien. It's my favorite author, and these are just, it's comfort read for me. It's comfort read territory. In the wake of a very, very down reading month for me, in terms of getting books finished, this is the silver line. The bright spot is just making my way through, and I'm excited to explore Sam and Frodo and Gollum and get to the other half in book 4. So for the rest of the month, we're going to do chapters 1 through 5, essentially over the course of this weekend and to the beginning of next week, and then after that do chapters 6 through 10. I hope Steve gets back to making a video a day. I think he's taken 2 days off here, and I think he still has time to get through the last 10 chapters doing a video a day. I won't be doing that. I have obligations and family, and I'm way behind on videos, which is why I'm making multiple videos right now. You'll notice the same orange hue, because I'm trying to make up for lost time, make up lost ground, and I just want to chat about these things. And this is the one for sure that I wanted to make sure I got covered, because I'm 3-4 days behind on getting this video up. It's still not too late. If you want to join in, feel free to jump in and let us know. Chat with myself, Steve, Tony. I'm sure if you wanted to have a Voxer chat, that Steve and I would have no problem setting that up and bringing you in. So feel free to reach out on Voxer. I'll try to remember to have that link down below where you can get a hold of me. And yeah, I'm really, really enjoying my time back in Tolkien. And I should do it more often. I usually reread The Hobbit most years. But I kind of do Lord of the Rings Silmarillion every couple of years. Usually Lord of the Rings more often than the Silmarillion. But I think I'm going to end up reading both of them this year. And right now I'm reading The Hobbit to my son, so I'll be getting through all 3 of them this year. And I will have no regrets at that. At all. So, thank you, BookTube.